All right, today we are jumping into a worldview that tries to answer, well, pretty much everything, from where the universe came from to the very nature of our own consciousness. And it all hinges on this one single idea about the relationship between us and God.
We've all thought about these questions, right? Does our soul survive our body? Is there a God? These are the biggest questions imaginable, and the text we're diving into today doesn't just ask them, it puts forward this single, coherent framework that's designed to answer them all.
So, where do you even start with something that big? Well, this whole argument is built on what the author calls the Christian postulate. Just think of it like a master key. It's this one interconnected truth that's meant to unlock everything else. Okay, so what in the world does correlative mean here? It's simple, really. It just means the two ideas are inseparable. They're like two sides of the same coin. The argument is you can't really have a concept of a personal God without a rational, moral humanity. And you can't have that without a personal God. They have to stand or fall together. And this is where you can really see that connection laid out. On the left, you have the attributes of God, and on the right, you have these corresponding abilities in people. So a personal God mirrors a rational human. An ethical God lines up with a moral human. And a God who is self-revealing, well, that corresponds to a human who has a spiritual personality, one that's actually capable of receiving that revelation. It's a perfect mirror.
Okay, so if God and humanity are linked up like this, what does that say about the biggest question of all? Where did everything come from? This is where the whole idea moves from asking, who are we, to asking, how did the universe itself get here?
And here's the central claim: creation. This idea is presented as the absolute cornerstone for everything else. It's not just a story about how things began. No, it's the foundation for having trust in a universe that has a purpose, one that's not just governed by pure random chance.
Now, the idea of creation wasn't just presented in a vacuum. This really lays out the intellectual landscape at the time. The text puts its view up against three other major frameworks. You've got dualism, the idea of logical necessity, and, of course, atheism.
So then, the text takes on each of these, one by one. It argues dualism can't work because you can't have two separate absolute realities. A universe born from logical necessity gets rejected because it would basically remove any real freedom from the picture. But honestly, the most interesting argument is the one against atheism, that the idea of an eternal, self-existing universe is, get this, actually contradicted by science.
And here is the twist. The author doesn't see science as a threat at all. In fact, it's the opposite. Scientific concepts from that era, things like atomic theory, evolution, and thermodynamics, they're all used as direct evidence for a finite universe. The argument is that they all point to the same thing, a definite beginning.
So if the universe had a beginning, and that beginning was a purposeful act, then the process of how it all developed should reveal that purpose, right? It's like following a trail of clues. And according to this text, all of those clues point in one direction, straight towards us, towards humanity.
And here's the progression that's laid out. The text describes this ascending order in nature, almost like a cosmic staircase. You start with inorganic matter, then move up through plant life, then animal life, and it all culminates in a being that's capable of rational thought and moral choice: humanity.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that humanity isn't just another animal in the food chain. It's the point where the universe itself kind of becomes self-aware. Humanity is seen as nature's interpreter, the conscious voice for a creation that, up until that point, was completely mute.
And this brings us to our final and maybe the most profound part of the argument. This entire worldview has to go head-to-head with its main intellectual rival, materialism. This is the idea that every human experience, our thoughts, our emotions, our very consciousness, can all be boiled down to nothing more than physical stuff happening in our brains.
And to be fair, the text lays out the opposing view pretty clearly, that our thoughts, our feelings, our sense of self, it's all just a byproduct of molecules moving around in our brains. As one writer famously put it, the brain secretes thought as the liver secretes bile.
But then it immediately pushes back, using a quote from a physiologist from that time. And the counterargument is really simple. That leap from physical atoms bouncing around in the brain to the actual feeling, the subjective experience of consciousness, well, it isn't just a gap in our knowledge. It's unthinkable.
And this really gets to the core of it. How can a stream of separate physical events inside our skull ever explain our profound, unified feeling of being a single self? What accounts for that persistent I that's there through all our changing thoughts and experiences?
And it all comes down to this really beautiful analogy from Cicero. Is our brain the source of our consciousness, or is it just the chink in the shutter through which we experience reality? I mean, this completely reframes the whole debate. It suggests our brain might not be the generator of consciousness, but maybe a receiver, or even a filter that limits it.
And this leaves us with our final big question. The entire case we've just walked through really rests on this one idea, that our starting point defines our destination. So ultimately, the way we answer the question, where do we come from, will always shape our answer to the question, why are we here?